that disclaimer before we get started. So I'm going to also share my screen. Since we do have a couple of new folks on the call today, can everybody see this? Okay, great.
Yep.
Thanks, Kate. So we just wanted to give kind of an overview of what this new work group is going to look like, since it is brand new, but also a combination of two old work groups that had a lot going on before. So I'm just going to kind of go through what we think it looks like and what our new strategic action plan looks like, so that you guys can kind of figure out where you'll fit in and what sort of initiatives we have to look forward to. So I included this timeline first. This is our strategic planning timeline, which started about 1.5 years ago, and we are now finalizing it and making it look pretty. It's all approved, but it will be available January 1st, 2021, and that's when we'll be launching this new 5-year plan. So as I mentioned, the biggest change that we're going to be talking about today is obviously the creation of this new work group, engagement and stewardship. Previously, we had an education and outreach work group and also a recreation work group, but we decided they had a lot of the same stakeholders, same people interested, and kind of overlapping initiatives. So we wanted to really maximize the engagement in both of those work groups and kind of get everybody in one place together so that we have more effective messaging and more effective education in the Schuylkill Watershed. And I just wanted to point out some of the old, or not old, but some of the projects and initiatives that were part of each of the education and outreach work group and the recreation work group. And all of these initiatives will hopefully be continuing as part of the new engagement and stewardship work group. So we have a program called Schuylkill Acts Impacts. This is a week-long excursion for high school students where they kayak down the river, they get professional advice, they do lots of environmental science activities, get presentations, and it's like a week-long bonding experience for them. And this is led by Schuylkill Headwaters Association. So that's one of our projects as part of that work group. We also have the Schuylkill Scrub Initiative, which aligns with Keep Pennsylvania Beautiful, if any of you are familiar with their cleanup initiatives. We kind of have a big part in that, just kind of capturing what cleanups are going on in the watershed. We also have an app called Clean Sweep that you can download if you ever pick up trash in the watershed. It's a way for people to record it, share photos, and report any trash hotspots. So this is a main thing that we normally do from March through May. This year it was actually in the fall because of COVID. But last year, I will say, our number was around 1 million pounds of trash removed from the watershed. So that's a big initiative that goes on as part of engagement and stewardship. We typically also have the Schuylkill Street Art Contest. So this is for 6th to 12th graders in all 4 of the Schuylkill Watershed counties in southeastern Pennsylvania, where students from all over the watershed get to submit their drawings. And then as part of this work group, we have a fun judging day where we look at all of the artwork, pick the winners, and then those are turned into street art stickers. So you can see in the picture here, that was last year with some students up in Schuylkill County. We were putting down one of the students' artwork next to a storm drain. So that's also a lot of fun and a great way to engage with all of our schools. Another way we've been trying to engage with municipalities and schools is through a storm drain marking program. So we have this design available for schools or municipalities to customize, and then we'll go in with the materials and help them mark their storm drains. So that's another education initiative that we have. And then moving on to the recreation side of things, the main things that we have going on here are the Schuylkill Sojourn. And I know Tim is going to talk about this a little bit more later in the meeting, but essentially we have, is it over 100 people, Tim?
Yeah, we typically have probably 200 to 250 participants, but usually about 100 each day.
Oh, okay, 100 each day. So
Yeah.
yeah, 250 people every year. And they can choose to do the week-long thing or just by day, as Tim said. But that's, again, kind of like the Schuylkill Acts and Impacts, but for adults. So we've got people kayaking down the entire length of the Schuylkill and having lots of activities and presentations. And in the past, we've had a Sojourn steward as part of the Schuylkill Action Network. So you can see Julia in the bottom right here was our steward last year. And that's somebody that the Schuylkill Action Network basically chooses to go along with the Sojourn and take pictures and have sort of a week-long project as part of it. So Julia was from Philly, and it was a great way for her to get involved because she said, she didn't have a car and she was sharing all of her photos and experiences on social media. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do it the same way this year, but we're hoping next year that we can continue with both of those activities as normal. And then the last thing I want to talk about really quickly, we're going to touch upon this again later, but we've been starting doing messaging campaigns for the entire Schuylkill. So in 2019, we had hashtags going around for hashtag Fish the Schuylkill. And this is just a way to kind of engage with people directly on social media. So anytime somebody is out in the watershed fishing, or this year boating was our initiative, we kind of want them to be unified. We want to have unified messaging, and we want them to kind of think, when they're out recreating on the river, that it's tied back to the Schuylkill and it's tied back to water quality. So those are some of the main things that we have going on in the engagement and stewardship work group. Tim, or maybe one of our veterans, I might pause here if anybody wants to jump in case I missed something, but I think that was everything. Okay, great. Yeah, and then we have typically in the past we have a lot of participation from Andy from Fish and Boat, from SRG, from Joe from the DEP, and we're hoping to really expand this work group to include more educators and more people who are really engaging with the public, so we can have that sort of unified messaging. And I also really quickly just want to go over the new engagement and stewardship work group section in our new 5-year plan. This will be available for everybody after the meeting, but it's just kind of nice to see it in one place in case you don't have time to review it. So the way that it's going to work this year or for the next 5 years, excuse me, we have this nice about section. It's just 2 sentences describing the work group. Then we have the goal of the work group, which again is to improve public awareness, equitable engagement in, and support for environmental activities such as recreation, education, and stewardship in the watershed. And then to meet that goal, we have 5 different objectives. And under each of those are 3 to 5 actions to help us achieve those objectives. So I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty today because it's a lot of text that you'll be able to see in the plan. But this is just kind of the guiding text for this work group. So the main 5 objectives are going to be to collaborate. Our main one is to include people and really share what's going on in the watershed in terms of education, stewardship. The second is educate. So this is the actual teaching aspect, more going out into the communities and working with educators and sharing stories. The third is engage. So I know like collaborate, educate, engage are all similar, but we kind of have like more specific actions under each one. The fourth is to actually implement programs and projects. So these are things like access points, implementing programs in classrooms for students, or out of the classroom for students and right in the watershed. Things like signage. So there's a couple of educational programs and projects that fall under this. And the last one is, of course, to finance all the work that we do. So we can't implement projects and have successful education programs if there is no funding. So part of the SAN is to just help connect all of you to some of the resources that are available. And if you're more interested in funding for a specific project, please do reach out to me. I think my contact information is here. And I can put it in the chat as well, because I'm happy to show you our grants directory or let you know what's coming up in the watershed. Okay, I think we are ahead of schedule here. But does anybody have any questions about sort of the structure of this work group, any of the initiatives that we're doing, or wants to maybe share some of the initiatives that you're working on that could be part of this work group?
Are we missing anybody? Maybe they're just not at this particular meeting, but like DCNR, state parks.
Yeah, Joe, I think for sure we want this work group to have a much bigger scope. We've done a sort of stakeholder analysis listing some of the key partners. And I know a couple people emailed me and unfortunately weren't able to make it today. But I think in the future, we'd love to have more input from educators, from teachers, from DCNR, from the parks. I'm sure I'm missing a lot of people here, but I can actually send the list around if you're interested in seeing who is kind of on that list. Because there's so many people in the watershed, in our schools and nonprofits and government agencies that we would really like to work with and kind of develop these shared messages and shared programming and learn from each other. So I'm happy to write down any suggestions people have for specific people or just groups that might be good to have involved here today.
That would be great. Thanks.
I have an anecdotal comment. My cousin's daughter was able to do the teen week-long Schuylkill Schuylkill, whatever it's called, that the teens did for a week. And it was really spectacular for her that she talks about it, 5-10 years later, she's still talking about, I guess it wasn't 10 years ago, but she's still talking about it. And it's impacted her experience and her understanding of her place in the watershed.
That's great. Thank you, Dottie. Yeah, that's a fantastic program. It really is.
Yeah, I know we've seen a lot of those students go on and get jobs in the field in the watershed doing environmental science or education or stewardship. So it's really great. And we're happy to just keep expanding on things like that, because I know a big thing that came up for us in our strategic planning process was raising and involving that next generation of leaders. So I think that this work is really important. So Tim, I might pass it off to you to lead some of our open discussions. Again, we just kind of want to hear from folks here today about what you would like to see from this work group, what you would find useful, and what areas we can support your work. There's been talk of workshops that could be helpful for educators, um, signage projects. So really anything that you see is a need for you, we're happy to hear about it and hopefully help with that. So Tim, I'm gonna let you maybe lead the discussion and I'll try to type and capture what people have to say.
Okay, sure. So the SAN is very good at doing listening sessions and feedback workshops and engaging with partners to hear what they want and how they can maybe benefit from the work of the SAN. And we've done them many times. We just got done doing them for the new strategic plan. We did one at the very beginning of the recreation work group. That was a really good day, sort of a half-day workshop. And so now that we've got this new work group together, and we're a fair amount of folks here with some new faces are all in one meeting, we thought it would be helpful again to just get a little bit of feedback, personal feedback, or from your own perspective, or feedback from the organization or group that you represent, just to hear some ideas on how you think this group can help you, some ways that sort of particular or specific needs maybe your education program could use, or ways that we could partner and collaborate with you. So really just spend the next 15 or 20 minutes with an open conversation, sort of discussing those things. I heard some of them expressed in your introductions. So maybe we can circle back to some of those things if you'd like. So really just open it up to anybody to share some of those things.
Hey everyone, Dan Shupsy with the Water Department. So I have just sort of an FYI and a potential future need. Green City Clean Waters is turning 10 this summer, and this spring we will be doing a lot of social media around that, all kinds of facets, business, community, regulatory, all that kind of stuff. So one need or one ask that we would probably have at some point is that we would ask the SAN and upstream partners to help us celebrate. So that could, I don't know everyone on this call, but that could potentially be a lot of you, reposting, talking about Green City Clean Waters, green infrastructure in your area, tying it back to the water department, stuff like that. So that could be an ask that we would have maybe mid-spring when we decide to engage like our greater coalition of partners and say, hey, celebrate with us, right? Use our hashtag, right? Post about this. Take, when's the last time you were in Philly visiting green infrastructure or something like that. So this is a perfect working group for that kind of idea. And so it may even be possible that you might want us to talk about this campaign. Erica, myself and a couple other people are going to be working on this digital communication strategy, but at some point we'll have it pretty locked down, and maybe you want us to talk a little bit about it. So there's a heads up, and when we tap you all, we say, hey, April is the month for partners to really go crazy on Green City Clean Waters. Can we rely on you for 3 social media posts, always using the hashtag or something like that? So that's just a little heads up, but happy to be here, and good morning to everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. That's certainly something we can do and be happy to do. And maybe that's even a good idea for November's annual meeting to have a presentation on the 10 years of that program, something for us to consider towards the end of 2021.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And we could get you likely with some advance notice, we could get you somebody like Mark Camerata or something to talk about Green City Clean Waters. He always gives really, really phenomenal presentations. So, happy to help. Just, I'll keep you all posted and you keep me posted, and, I'm excited to be part of this working group. So
Great, thanks.
Thumbs up on that.
I know there's others out there. I might pick on Ross. Ross, you mentioned the Leave No Trace program. I don't know what you're thinking about, maybe potentially how this work group can benefit that program or sort of breathe some life into it. I know it was a program, maybe in the 80s or something, that was really popular. And um, I don't really hear the language thrown around as much as I did 20 years ago. So I don't know, maybe if you want to sort of summarize your thoughts on that and maybe some ideas on how SAN could assist with that program.
It's Leave No Trace, I guess, is what we're talking about. It's a very active worldwide activity, lots of things going on in the United States. It is something that was developed in the 80s and early 90s by some federal organizations, federal agencies, departments that were having significant recreational impact. It became they developed it and then sort of turned it over to someone to become an organization in the mid 90s. So it's been going active for a long time. There's a lot of predecessor comments of Leave No Trace out there, but it's something that the scouting organization has bought into big time, and we have a lot of activity around that. And we try to influence our scouts with that. And so it's something that recreational, if you go to the lnt.org website, there is, that's the national organization. And there are a lot of activities. They have hotspots where they try to address issues, so that if there was a recreational impacting hotspot along the Schuylkill, we could suggest that maybe as a hotspot that they would try to organize improvement activities around, organize local, like this group or some subgroup, one of the organizations that support the SAN along the Schuylkill, to maybe have a work day or a work period that would get national recognition and focus and support. So there's a lot of things that can be done. The bottom line is it's a concept of trying to minimize impacts while we're out there doing our things, promoting recreational activities, trying to minimize the impacts. And it's based on science, and it's trying to, and education, trying to get the word out there to any kind of organization, individuals as well as groups. And hopefully I could bring some of the scouting organization to support that information. But the other thing about the scouting organization is to get the scouts to use the river and get out there and enjoy it and find out what a great resource it is, as well as get them involved in conservation projects, both at the river or any of the area within the Schuylkill, or the SAN's footprint, so to speak, and get them involved in projects, tree plantings, etc., so that they can buy into some of these things and hopefully, grow that conservation stewardship component of their background as well as to go forward. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Ross. That was great. Really
I mean,
great.
I can send you the 7 principles of Leave No Trace.
Sure.
Plan ahead and prepare. And that's the first principle. And then travel and camp on durable surfaces, dispose of waste properly, leave what you find, minimize campfire impacts, respect wildlife, and be considerate of other visitors. Those are the quote 7 principles, and then we just kind of use those as the tools. They're the guidance and principles. They're not rules. And sometimes you may go down a trail and go left. Sometimes you may go down a trail and go right because of different things. But it's a set of set of principles that we try to work with within anybody, and it can impact the outdoors in some remote experience as well as your backyard. And I've spent a number of years working with the Reading School District and on Earth Day and talking to them about it. Simple as picking up poop from your dog to keep the waters clean, to other activities within the city itself. So there's lots of good things we can do with that, and we can take it a lot further, but that's the 25-bit high view of it.
Fantastic. Thank you. Dottie.
I'll piggyback on that. I've got two ideas that have been floating around in my mind about things that might help locally where I am, but then also I think it makes sense in this context too. One is the concept of carry in, carry out, which piggybacks right on that leave no trace, or what you just got done saying. Because it seems to me a lot of times what I see is every park that we're in has to deal with trash. There are times when it can be managed and there's times when it's not managed very well. And I don't see that this would be something that would go over well if we made it a law or we made it this is what has to happen. But I do think that there might be a subset of people who, if we start hey, will you buy into this? And are you willing to? And will you take a commitment that you will? And then we start a movement that is saying, rather than going to a park and expecting to leave our trash and where are the trash cans, but going to a park knowing that whatever I bring in, I take out with me. And I think that would help reduce some of the trash that then gets eaten by animals and carried all over the place. A second thought that I have is just educating more about composting and reducing trash so that people can do composting. And I think there is a ground level for that across the area where you have people doing their own backyard composting. You have a few businesses like Bennett that is collecting compost. I don't know how this plays out in the suburbs, because I think that in the city we don't have space. But I think that, and I think that that's a conversation that could be picked up more. And all of these could be, my ideas could be just an idea and you drop it, but these are things that are floating in my mind. And then the last thing that I was thinking about is the whole question of who is at the table making decisions and participating. And, certainly this summer with all of us seeing the death of George Floyd and some of the other horrible situations that now are in the front that we see, and we can't turn around and say, no, this isn't happening. We've got a door that has opened that we can have these conversations about diversity and lack of diversity. And one of the ways of changing the systemic situation that is white dominated and keeps, and unconsciously without purpose, can keep a barrier there for Black and brown people. San can have a conversation even in here about what groups are not part of the decision-making process. Not just what groups are not participating in the activities, but what groups are not part of the decision-making process. And in that way, we as an organization would become an accomplice to assist changing the narrative. So those are three of the things that I would put forth as areas that I'd be interested in talking about.
All great ideas, Dottie. Thank you. We're open to hearing all of those things and any ideas you might have, so thank you.
Yeah, Dottie, I know you probably know this at this point, but for others, I just want to also point out this is something we heard a lot during our strategic action planning process. So we did make a point to include new values and new actions, specifically revolving around underconnected communities and bringing more diversity to our work groups and to our decision making. So that's in the plan, but as far as actually acting on it, we're always open to hearing what folks' ideas are for actually putting those values into action. So thank you, Dottie, again.
Yeah, I'd like to second that. I just put something in the chat that I'm learning about, which is racial caucusing. And I think in environmental spaces, it would be really interesting for some group at some point to take the lead. You know, I don't think PWD is necessarily positioned well to take that lead, you know, but as a person in 2020, it's important. So just wanted to put that into the chat. And just second what Dottie said, you know, like I'm really pushing hard for a lot of areas to make these spaces very safe. And so wherever I'm meeting with people, I'm really learning to listen, making a safe space, talking about affirmations, talking about even the land that we're on, right? Sometimes meetings start with that idea. So just wanted to throw my 2 cents in there that would happily participate and think that it's a very, very, very important thing to do. And SAN would be, you know, I don't want to push you guys too hard, but I think SAN would be an appropriate kind of organization to begin that conversation. Happy to help in any way.
Great, thanks, Dan. Appreciate sharing that link. And, you know, like Erica said, this is something that the SAN recognizes and is committed to for sure moving forward. And we're going to need a lot of help. So thanks for that. Any other ideas or thoughts?
Yeah, I don't want to dominate the conversation too much, but one thing that we've done with a little bit more frequency is doing Esri storyboards, right? Since we're all remote for the time being. And a lot of what we talk about is science-based literacy can be translated into maps, you know, trash, overflows, tree cover, tree canopy, heat island, all that stuff. So just wanted to, you know, audibly talk quickly. And I'll put an example in the chat too of something that we did. But we have GIS specialists. I know not everybody has those, but we are doing more story maps to try to help us do outreach in a logical way where somebody can on their own time go to this thing, take a look at it. It'll walk you through something, whatever it may be. And the story maps have certain settings. You know, you'll pick a theme, you'll pick a color, so it is fairly intuitive to set these sort of things up. So just want to encourage people to take a look at that while we're all waiting for the vaccine and kind of waiting, you know, at home. So I'll put something in the chat about that too.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. I'd like to see something like that for sure.
I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but if anyone feels inspired, I am interested to hear for any of the educators on the call, really what would be helpful for you. Because I know being an educator, we have the Alliance for Watershed Education, we have resources kind of all over the place. But I think the SAN has a really unique opportunity to be able to provide specific workshops or events based on what folks need. So, you know, one thing we've heard is like people don't think about maybe like CPR classes for people doing sojourns or outdoor activities. So really anything specifically for educators, but if anyone else has ideas, it's also welcome. But if anyone can think of anything like that, I would love to hear your thoughts.
So I want to ask more about that because I see myself as one of the educators. I'm not sure who else sees themselves in that category. So if you're an educator, will you wave or stick up a, okay, yeah. So like, are you asking about classroom education? Are you asking about informal education? Are you asking about how we engage the public? I'm not sure what you're asking. Or
So I
all the
think
above.
one of the things that we want to be able to provide is like training for or workshops for educators.
Okay.
Yeah. So if there are things that you as educators feel that you need that you're not getting elsewhere, let us know. And we'd be happy to work on getting that for you.
What's coming to my mind is watching and you may have heard me say this before, but watching Tocconé Tacony Frankfurt Watershed and what they're doing with their education. I see them figuring out how to get people to actually go into the environment. And that's one thought that I have in terms of who is doing something that's engaging the public in a positive way. And so there may be some way that there could be conversations about it, that you might have a panel that would be talking about how are we outreaching to the community and what's being effective. They also, along with that line, I mean, they're doing a good job of it with the EIJ stuff too. The other thing that's coming to mind with me in this is what Fairmont Waterworks, the arm of Water Department Education. They have a really strong outreach to teachers and classrooms, and so some of what they're doing might be able to be picked on and spread out more. And then the last thing I would say is piggybacking on what Dan said. I myself am trying to figure out how to turn my outreach to the community into a story map, because, we're doing this all virtual. There's some positive things that are happening with it, but there could be, education. I mean, Sam could put out a survey of what kind of help do you need as educators, and then ideas could be a training on this, a training on that, a training on the other thing, and see what happens. Stroud's also always doing an excellent job. So
Thanks, Dottie. I really appreciate you kind of listing those different organizations, because I can try to, individually reach out to them and hopefully be able to share some of the great lessons that they have for a lot of educators and just engaging people in the watershed. So we do have 5 minutes left for open discussions. So I'll just open it up in case anyone else would like to share anything that's going on, or anything that you would like to see from this work group.
And I'll just mention really quickly to build off of Dottie's suggestion about a survey. Please don't feel like this is the only opportunity that you'll have to sort of, share ideas with us, tell us what you want and what you need from this work group. Again, this is newly formed, so we expect that there'll be some learning and some evolution as we go. So, if you don't think of something today and it pops into your head tomorrow or a week from now, or whenever, feel free, reach out and let us know.
Yeah, that's a great point, Kate. If you've been involved in any other Schuylkill Action Network work group, it seems like every work group meeting is pretty much idea formation and seeing what things we can sort of get some traction with and things we think might be effective to reaching out and collaborating. So yeah, great point, Kate. This is just the beginning of ongoing sort of conversation and ideas.
All right, thanks everyone. Yeah, I also put my email in the chat, as Kate said. Feel free to reach out to me at any time if you have an area that pops up, an area of need, or something that you think of. My email is always open, so please don't hesitate to reach out to us, because we're forming this work group to try and help people connect. So anything we can do to help, we will do that for all of you and all of our partners. So for the next maybe 5 minutes, I'm just going to move on to our next agenda item, talking about a new messaging campaign I think I mentioned this in the presentation a little earlier, but in 2019, we started doing this yearly social media outreach messaging campaign. So in 2019, we had Fish the Schuylkill. We had hundreds of people using this hashtag, mostly on Instagram, social media. We got partners using the hashtag as well. I know Fish and Boat was using it, PWD was using it for all their fishing events. So it really was helping to kind of get the ball rolling on some of this cohesive messaging and connecting people on social media and the general public. This year in 2020, we did hashtag Boat the Schuylkill. So we were kind of still able to use it because people can go out on the river socially distanced. So that was fine. But for 2021, we're looking to have a new sort of messaging campaign that we put out there via a hashtag. So our two ideas for this were hashtag hike the Schuylkill or hashtag bike the Schuylkill. So I just wanted to open it up to see if anybody had any specific events planned for 2021 that would align with either of those one way or the other. And if not, we'll probably just go with, I think it was going to be hike the Schuylkill. But I wanted to put it out there because there's different options. I mean, we've spent the last year or two kind of throwing around different hashtag ideas. So we're still open to those, but for hiking and biking in particular, those are two that really stood out. So I wanted to kind of just put that out there and hear everybody's thoughts on one or the other.
I would vote for, I like them both personally, but I'm a city biker and I bike predominantly as our mode of transportation. And there's a lot of biking groups down here. And I know a lot of people take the Schuylkill River Trail up and out. So down here, you know, I think you could get a decent amount of traction with Bike the Schuylkill. So, you know, they're both great, but I obviously as a biker lean a little bit that way, and I could help promote that message in these biking groups if that's what you wanted to go with.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I also know in terms of COVID, bikes everywhere have been selling out. So now might be a good time for that messaging campaign now that people are biking more. Also, this just popped into my mind, but Tim or Sarah, do you know if there's a special anniversary for the annual biking event that SRG does?
I don't know what number year we're on actually. Maybe this is the fifth one. It would be the fifth one this fall, I think, maybe.
I think so.
Yeah, that'll happen at the end of September. And, you know, everybody knows, you know, it was crazy at the beginning of the spring when elected officials and folks were contemplating shutting down trails. And I know the Appalachian Trail got closed at some point, and some commissioners were considering closing trailheads and those sorts of things. But there was a lot of pushback because that was one resource that people could go out and enjoy safely. Recreation, of course, everybody knows just exploded this past year. All kinds of recreation, you name it, and people were doing it. You can't buy a kayak, you can't buy a bike, you can't hardly find hiking gear. So it just was really sort of reassuring to see that that's a resource in a way that people are finding physical and mental wellness in outdoor recreation. So I think this is just a great thing for the SAN to continue. I think at some point we'll get to, you know, all of these wonderful ideas. My only thought with maybe one upside to using Hike the Schuylkill this year is that maybe potentially a little bit more inclusive of more people. You know, Fish the Schuylkill required somebody who knows how to fish or gear to go fishing, or, you know, to have the knowledge of where the sort of the fish for free days are. that the state offers. And then, boating the Schuylkill requires certain equipment. So I just almost wonder if, Hike the Schuylkill maybe would be a little bit more inclusive of people who can just go hop on a local trail and be engaged that way. That's the only upside that I think. I don't have a strong opinion either way. That's just a thought.
I just have one thing to kind of promote the northern part of this whole adventure, and that is, the Appalachian Trail crosses the Schuylkill in Berks and Schuylkill County. The Appalachian Trail is kind of the county line between the two of them. So I like to promote that the hiking is a great thing in the Schuylkill River watershed as well. And there are a lot of trails in Berks and Schuylkill that would support that as well. Biking is a great idea, but just want to promote the Appalachian Trail. You can go anywhere on the East Coast on the Appalachian Trail, and it also crosses through the Schuylkill River watershed.
To
So
me,
just-
there is,
Oh.
to me, there isn't much difference between the two. It'd be almost like trail is Schuylkill.
That's what I was sort of just going to say. My partner is sitting here. We're working from home, of course, right? So her idea was like, Atlantic City has due AC, right? So we have a whole watershed. You might not have to pick hike or bike, right? You can do the whole watershed, and you could even incorporate a story map, right? You could hike some places, you can bike some places, you could have some check-offs, you could have some check-ins, so it could be a holistic look at the watershed where you fish some places and you bike some places and you hike some places, and there's historical spots in some places, and there's a super fun site, right? Which isn't awesome, but like it's worth mentioning. So, this could be a time for a holistic campaign that looks at the entire watershed potentially. So, you have a whole other menu of options when you put everything out there.
I missed one of the words you said. You talked about hike or bike, and then you said something and I missed the word, the Schuylkill.
I said fish, right? So I think.
And those three, yeah.
Yeah, and so you could put anything you want in there, right? It could be watershed wide, right? Do the Schuylkill sounds sort of weird to me, but like maybe there's another holistic campaign that could bring everybody together.
Yeah, I think one of the things we had thrown around in the past was explore the Schuylkill, because that kind of encompasses a lot of these different activities that we're talking about. And I agree, fishing, boating, biking does exclude people, but we also do want to specifically kind of reach out to those communities. And I think as the years goes on, we're going to just continue choosing different nouns. So whether it's fish, boat, hike, bike, walk, explore, I think we can engage lots of different groups. And the key is going to be the Schuylkill at the end, if that makes sense. And Kate, were you going to add on to that?
What about?
Yeah, I was going to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dottie.
What about trek the Schuylkill? I mean, that's sort of bike and hike too. I don't know. I mean, I either one is perfectly fine with me. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think to build on both Erica, what you were saying, and Dan's point, I think there is value in these sort of annual, slightly more specific social media campaigns, just because they do give us an opportunity, one, to reach targeted groups, and to get excitement around a particular issue. Narrowing in tends to drive a little bit more social media engagement. But to Dan's point, I mean, I do think it's something we could explore for moving forward. Even if we have a particular campaign slogan for the year, whether it's hike, bike, trek, what have you, that we do have resources. Maybe it's a story map, maybe it's something else, but that all tie back to include you know, like I could almost see that it's all under the header of Explore the Schuylkill. And, you know, we have resources dedicated to all the different kinds of exploration on our website, you know, on the SANS page as sort of like a recreation hub. And then, you know, just pulling out targeted campaign ideas from that. That way we're sort of getting the best of both worlds, and it's, you know, we're still highlighting all the various ways you can enjoy the Schuylkill. So yeah, I think there are a lot of ways to make it all work.
Yeah, it's almost a hard decision because they're all good.
Hey, Erica,
oh,
this
go ahead,
is
Sarah.
Sarah at PDE. I'm finally chiming in. Hello. Has there ever been a hashtag about working on the Schuylkill?
Not yet, but that's also a great idea, and I'm going to add that to the list.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, so as the years kind of go by and this work group evolves, I'm hoping we can reach out to all of these different kind of niche groups. It sounds like we're okay to just kind of pick one and move forward. I think they're all good. Tim, I think you said it was the 5th anniversary of the bike ride, so that might fit in really perfectly with promoting that. So I'm gonna kind of highlight that one for now. If
Eric, can you
anyone,
confirm that that's true? Is it the 5th one?
I'm pretty sure.
I know I've lost track of the Sojourn. I should, at
Keep
20,
it
this one should be easier to count.
right. I'm counting t-shirt colors, and we've had 4. So it'll be the 5th.
okay, sounds good. Well, we'll confirm that and pencil hashtag bike the Schuylkill in for now. So I'll start moving forward with any social media that we're doing. We can kind of start pushing that. And if anyone here is on their social media for their organization, just be sure to keep reposting and keeping that in mind that we're trying to have this watershed-wide biking campaign. So more details to come on that. But we are a couple minutes behind, so I'm gonna pause the recording here.
Cool to pull up the screen share now?
Yep, go ahead.
Okie doke. All right. Can I just get a thumbs up if you can see that? Yes, good. Okay,
yeah.
great. I've only got the little Zoom sidebar here. Alrighty. Okay, good to go, Erica?
Yep, good to go. It looks good.
All right. Hey, everyone. It's good to see familiar faces and names on here and a couple new ones. And I apologize I couldn't make it to the first hour, but I'm going to stick around for the second. So excited to chat with you all. I'm going to talk for 10, 15 minutes here about United by Blues stewardship and communication strategies kind of before and during the COVID-19 pandemic. And hopefully have some discussion because, you know, I'll just kind of give a presentation on what we've been doing this year, but it's all been trial and error as it has been for everyone as we adapt to this new virtual world. So I'm also interested in feedback and hearing other people's strategies. Like I said, there's a lot of familiar names on the call, but for those that aren't familiar, I'll give a brief overview of United by Blue. So we're a Philly-based for-profit company. We're an outdoor brand, so we do also kind of represent that recreation population in our customers that Erica was just talking about. And we sell sustainably and ethically made products for an outdoor and sustainable lifestyle. So all of our products are geared towards helping you kind of solve for some sort of sustainability challenge, whether it's being able to shop for responsibly made clothes with organic and natural materials, or tools like straw kits, reusable water bottles, reusable silverware that can help you reduce waste in your life. So it's all around sustainable living. And we're based in Philadelphia. Our office is just right on 3rd and Callowhill, and we have 2 stores in Old City and in University City, and we've been around for 10 years. But our business is twofold. We are not just a brand that sells products. We also consider ourselves to be an ocean or waterway conservation organization because we have a one-for-one business model. So for every product that's sold through United by Blue, we also remove 1 pound of trash from an ocean, waterway, or coastline. And so we've been doing cleanups for all 10 years that the company has been around as our main way of removing those pounds of trash that we commit to. And we, all of our cleanups are facilitated in-house by a department that I manage called our cleanups department. And we do this so that the business itself is actually taking responsibility for its environmental mission. So it's in-house, but it's done through a lot of partnerships with a lot of all of your organizations. You know, we on a normal year, we may not be on Zoom, we may be out doing a cleanup together with a lot of your organizations. But to date, in 10 years, we removed just about close to 3.4 million pounds of trash. So we're a B Corp, and just a brief overview of that is that while we are in a for-profit model, we voluntarily submit ourselves to a third-party audit that holds us to the highest social and environmental standards. So our environmental mission, our sustainability initiatives are all audited to make sure they are of the highest standards, no greenwashing allowed. And so we pursue this certification to make sure our standards are quite high. Just briefly, I want to run through what a normal year would look like in the cleanups department. So in which I know is kind of the focus of this group is how we're working on our waterway conservation efforts, you know, during the pandemic and beyond. So a normal year of cleanups for us would be made up of these 4 tenants. This photo's a great shot of a bunch of legacy trash we were able to remove from Burlington Island, just up the river from ourselves in the center of the Delaware. This was now 2 springs ago. And this represents a high yield cleanup. So normally we'd be doing community cleanups, which is where we partner with a lot of your organizations and others to bring volunteers in, do environmental education on kind of plastic pollution and behavioral change is sort of how we can reduce waste entering waterways and natural areas. So community cleanups are volunteer-based events. High yield cleanups are larger cleanup programs where we target illegal dump sites, legacy trash, things of that sort, all affecting waterways. And then international cleanups is a new one for us in which we're leveraging partnerships in other parts of the world where trash pollution in water is also a big issue, like in Southeast Asia. And partnerships is a big part of all 3 of these cleanup tenants. So normally we would be doing a mix of all of these throughout the year to meet our weight goals each year. However, during COVID-19, we've obviously had to pivot all of our in-person programming, which for cleanups is all of it. It's very tangible work. So this year, just to be fully transparent with everyone, has been a patchwork of trial and error of, you know, canceling segments of the year, hoping we could pick back up in-person activities, you know, by summer or by fall, and then revisiting that plan when that seemed to not be the case anymore throughout the year. We've tried different strategies of virtual cleanups, et cetera. So I'll talk through some of those strategies, but what cleanups have looked like this year for us, we've tried to put on some separate but together cleanups where we encourage our volunteers to go out and do individual cleanups, and, you know, even if it's not near water, just to keep the practice alive. So even if it's just on your city block or in your backyard, we've had to pause our high yield cleanups because these have been deemed non-essential projects, and most of our high yield cleanups involve partnerships with municipalities. So those have been paused for the meantime. But what we have been able to leverage is in certain parts of the world where COVID hasn't been quite as bad as it has been in the US, we have been able to leverage those international cleanup partnerships to get some weight in this year. But the big focus of what I'll be chatting about today is these separate but together community cleanups, because this has to do with kind of our outreach, our environmental stewardship that we're promoting amongst our volunteers, and our communication strategies. Here's just a great reminder photo of one of our last cleanups before the pandemic hit. This is at Frankfurt Boat Launch on the Delaware, and look how many people close together on a nice sunny day. So pre-COVID, our communication strategies were largely outreach to get volunteers to come to in-person events. So reflecting for this presentation, I was thinking our outreach was intended for communication of details rather than engagement. So our outreach strategies were virtual, but the engagement piece was in person. So it was basically telling people, where and when to come engage with cleanups and conservation and stewardship through volunteerism. This was all done in groups pre-COVID as well. Event-based things where we're bringing a lot of people to one place at one time. And so it was group activism and group stewardship happening. And this also occurred through partnerships. Our outreach occurred at the organization level. So we were reaching out to schools, to churches, to nonprofit groups, to clubs, to recruit people at the organization level to come conduct environmental stewardship through our cleanups. And kind of all of that needed to transition as we moved to a virtual world where we needed to move from kind of the organizational level to the individual level and change from communication to engaging someone virtually, which has certainly proved to be a challenge. One of our first attempts actually at changing communication to engagement occurred right before the pandemic hit. As we were planning out our where we'll do cleanups in 2020, we actually were using social media to ask people where they wanted us to come do cleanups. And that was our first kind of entry point into giving an individual volunteer a say in the stewardship that they were going to conduct. So we had just started to move into this engagement piece right prior, but just some examples. I mean, besides that, our outreach was just details of when the cleanup was, when to meet, impact emails, but nothing really engaging. So since COVID, here's a couple of things that we have tried. So virtual engagement is what we've been seeking, and that separate but together mindset is what we're trying to encourage, because cleanups and stewardship are really about community, and people come together around that common cause, and it's really a great motivator for stewardship. So we wanted to be able to keep that kind of feeling of community and group work, but obviously it had to be in a separate and individual capacity due to the pandemic. So, but that's the kind of mood we're striving for in our events. We've moved our outreach to the individual level. So using things like social media, individual email campaigns, things of that sort to reach the individual and let them know that they could participate in something, on their own, but still as part of a larger movement. Organizational level engagement has still worked, but it just hasn't been our first priority. If people aren't going to their church groups or going to their in-person clubs, it might not be their first place that they're hearing about a volunteer opportunity, but we're kind of trying to cover both bases, going at both levels. This year, we've increased our use of social media for cleanups a lot. It used to not be the main place that we would promote cleanups. But since then, it seems to be one of the only places that we can promote cleanups at the individual level. So we've been running things like virtual cleanup days, where we'll pick one day per month and advertise it all on social media, and try to get people to go do an individual cleanup on a day and a time. We called this our Antisocial Earth Club, which is a product of the marketing team, which was meant to kind of make people feel like they were part of something communal, but kind of playing on the joke of antisocial because you're doing it alone. Other kind of conservation social media campaigns we ran, we started a Marine Conservation Monday campaign, did a Plastic Free July campaign, a couple things of the sort to just try to keep cleanups and trash pollution in waterways at the front of mind of our volunteers and our customers, since they weren't being engaged in person and at events. I will just share one thing that we've learned from the virtual cleanup days is, and this is where I'm curious if you all have had luck, we have not had a lot of luck of people participating in virtual cleanups at the same day and time, because in some ways, why would they? If they don't have to show up at a certain place or time for the start of an event or to receive their supplies, they would do it anytime during the weekend or anytime during the week. So one thing, and that made tracking hard, so tracking impact hard. one thing we're going to adjust going into 2021 is rather than setting dates for these virtual events, we'll kind of make them rolling campaigns so that people can participate on their own schedule, and try to kind of solve for the tracking by tracking a longer period of time rather than one date. I'm going to skip ahead here to show, so Blue Friday was on that list. This was our most recent campaign that actually a couple of you partnered with us on, and this was our a pretty successful virtual cleanup event that occurred on what's known as Black Friday. We call it Blue Fridays. We encourage people to go out and do cleanups instead of go the consumption route on a day known for consumption. And this actually was a pretty good campaign for us this year, and we're going to be borrowing from some of those tactics. What we leveraged for Blue Friday this year was partnerships, so leveraging each other's volunteer bases, and then having one communal impacts data tracking form, so that while all partners were reaching out to their volunteers, encouraging them to do cleanups, they were all coming back to one center or one hub to track data, and then we can share it out amongst partners so that we're kind of keeping that separate but together thing going. So just to wrap up here, I don't want to take up too much of this meeting's time, but here's just some examples of what I just talked about, what we shared on social media, to hopefully switch from communication to engagement through our communication strategies. So this is one of our Instagram advertisements for Blue Friday, participating in Blue Friday, giving all of the event details right there on social media, but in bringing in social media features like tap to learn more, swiping to get more details. Here's, these are really easily screenshotable things that people can take their directions for how to do a safe, COVID-friendly cleanup, how to dispose of their trash, and be able to go out and have those resources with them on hand, since we're not there in person to be able to communicate these details as we normally would. Another example of a virtual community cleanup we ran over the summer. We've done educational campaigns to try to keep this conservation lifestyle front of mind. So 6 ways to live more sustainably during COVID. And partnerships, like I said, have been a big piece of, kind of leveraging each other's volunteer bases, and just, what a time to come together instead of staying separate in this virtual world. And with that, I will close, and Erica, I'll leave it up to you whether we do any discussion or just keep moving forward. But thank you all for listening, and you should all have my email, and if not, I can throw it in the chat if anyone wants to discuss further. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Maria. We're so happy to have you involved today. I know United by Blue is a private business, which is a lot different than what a lot of us here are involved in, but I know I've been really impressed with all of the messaging and stewardship that they've still been able to do, and a lot of resiliency in COVID, and just leveraging those partnerships. So we really appreciate you sharing all of those lessons learned with us today. I think that'll be really helpful for a lot of people in the work group.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I am gonna move on to Paul's presentation about education, but if anyone has questions for Maria, we can save questions to the end or have some of those discussions in the chat. But for the sake of time, I want to kind of keep it moving on to our next subtopic for the day, which is education and outreach for students. So Paul, I will turn it over to you to introduce yourself and share your screen.
Let me pull it up real quick and then I'll introduce myself once again. Hi, I'm Paul Jansen. I am the director for the Center for Excellence in Local Government. And we're here at Albright College, and we focus on Berks County. The Center for Excellence serves all 72 municipalities in Berks County, as well as the county itself. We do a lot of work with the Berks County commissioners and various county departments that interface with municipalities. So I'm very happy to be here. I'm also happy to share with you this new opportunity that we have from Albright. Through what's called the Science Research Institute. This is a new program with the college. It actually started about 6 years ago in one of the school districts in Berks County. And it was designed as a project for high school students and middle school students to get involved in doing research for various projects. And what happened was it got very, very popular, and then it started moving outside to other school districts, and eventually it created a problem because it was housed out of the Conrad Weiser district, and then there started to be other students involved. So Albright College reached out to the SRI and asked them if they wanted to become affiliated with the college, and it was kind of a marriage made in heaven for both. So now the SRI Institute, or Science Research Institute, is housed out of Albright, which is kind of fun because I was the big opportunity for Albright to reach out to Berks County, and now the SRI is another opportunity for the college to reach out. So real quickly, what we do with SRI, or what SRI does, is they do all kinds of research projects for students from the 5th grade all the way up till graduation, 12th grade. The college is involved in it because they want to start helping students as they're younger to really expand their thoughts of where they're going. And so you can see that there's research, education, material science, entrepreneurs, there's student interest, and then there's this private-public collaboration, which involves the Berks County Water and Sewer Association. The SRI came to us and said that they thought there might be a real good opportunity to work with protecting waterways. And so they were starting to talk to us about safe and secure water, and we kind of explained to them that that's what source water protection is all about. And Berks County has a countywide source water protection program for 97% of our public water suppliers. So we were very excited to work with them on that. And now they are formally putting this program together. And so we have 12 students that are beginning their work as we speak in learning what source water protection is and beginning to develop their projects that they want to do to assist in helping the Berks County Water and Sewer Association, school districts, dealing with projects that are associated with source water protection. We're very excited about them. I want to relay a little story just to give you some thought about how this program actually works. In that the Secretary of Agriculture for Pennsylvania came to the SRI gathering last spring. It's been a little over a year, or last fall, a little over a year now, so 15 months. And he talked about this problem they had with getting rid of chicken manure. And so the students looked at that and said, geez, what can we do about that? And they started to analyze what goes into chicken manure. And they realized that the chemical composition of it is very similar to glass. And so they were able to modify the composition of the manure and make industrial glass. And it's been patented now, and it's being developed and used by manufacturers that need industrial glass for insulation, various other issues. The SRI program now has 8 patents that they've been doing with research that they've done. So why the Berks County Water and Sewer Association? Well, we want to try to, first of all, we want to try to expose these students to career paths that would get them into all levels of source water protection and water and sewer career opportunities, but also to help them look at issues that we have, study them, and see if there are things that they can do to help us. And one of the exciting things that I want to talk with all of you about is the opportunity that any of you could sponsor a group of these students to work, looking at issues that you have that maybe a little bit of research, a little bit of work might go forward to assist in solving those problems. Right now, they're in phase 1 of this watershed security process, where they're mapping unassessed headwaters and tributaries. Then they're going to look at the source water protection issues associated with that. Then they're going to do some specific work on reservoirs and well protection, and then finally they're going to work with water and sewer producers. We have 6 different members of the Berks County Water and Sewer Association that are actually going to sponsor teams of these students to work. You can see down below that we've identified various groups that could also work with us, and a lot of you represent those groups. Tomorrow, an application is going into the Department of Environmental Protection for an education grant, and so we're hoping that will be approved. But this isn't a 7-month process. This is probably going to be multi-years. We're going to look at it, year after year after year, and hopefully delve further into what issues come up and things that can be done to assist our membership and the Schuylkill Action Network, and really dealing with problems that are out there that maybe some research could help with, and these students could do. The majority of the students that are in this first team are below the 10th grade, so they're going to be on this project for 2 or 3 years, and then we'll be looking with SRI to bring younger students in that can continue with the program, so they just don't do 7 months, but they do multiple years. It's exciting. The college is building a huge laboratory to help with SRI, and it's getting funded by a number of large manufacturers that love the idea of these students getting involved at their age group. So I want to be forthright about the fact that we're looking for sponsors, and if any of you have any thoughts about that, you certainly can reach out to me, the Berks County Water and Sewer Association. I'll put in the chat my email, and if you want to be involved, please let me know. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them at this time.
Thank you, Paul. I'll give people a second if you have any questions. But I just want to say, this is kind of exactly what we're hoping to do more of, is form these sort of collaborative projects where we're able to coach and teach and mentor students specifically around environmental education and watershed engagement. So we're really excited to be kind of supporting this project in Berks County. And I encourage everyone to reach out to Paul and see how they can get involved with this group of students next year.
So Paul, I have a question.
Yes.
It sounds like this is built into the curriculum already at the schools, or is it like a separate program that the students are involved in?
Well, it was originally built into the curriculum at Conrad Weiser, and then they allowed other high schools to get involved in the project. And then they started to develop issues over the fact that it was housed at Conrad Weiser, but other school districts were involved in it.
Okay.
And so it made it really easy to relocate it at Albright College. Obviously, we're right in the middle of Berks County, but this isn't a Berks County project. And I think most of you probably know Albright's reach is much further. In fact, we go to international students. But this is available not just in Berks County, but it's available to students anywhere. And so, students that are down in the Montgomery County, Philadelphia area could be involved. They're making a real push to try to get students from Reading involved, because obviously the college is located right here, and it's a great opportunity for them to get some real advanced exposure. But I don't want anybody on the phone call to say that this is a Berks County or a City of Reading issue. It really is. Wherever we reach, we can work with this. They have some diagrams of what this new building's going to look like that they're building, and one of the diagrams has a bus out in front. And I chided the director of SRI that she needs to have a bus tour from there over to the science building here at Albright, because we have a really great chemistry, biology, and physics undergrad program here. And so, the students can do this program with SRI, and then they can come to Albright. But it's not really designed to say you do SRI if you're coming to Albright, because these are 5th graders, 6th graders, 12th, 11th graders. So, but I do think that it's a great tie-in to have the kind of professors that we have here to help with SRI and help these students doing their research. So we're excited about it.
Thanks for asking that, Sarah.
one of the projects we're looking at, and you all are probably very much aware of it, this algae plume issue that we face at Blue Marsh on a regular basis. And so one of the things we're going to try to do is see if the students can do some research as to what is, what has that process started, and is there something that we can find that can help to minimize that, but really realistically knowing before, we all know it happens when it's hot, but what are the conditions that really cause that to explode? And so that's one of the things that they're going to be looking at. And I figure if they can solve chicken manure, they can solve an algae bloom.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, for the question, and thank you, Paul. We're really excited to see how it goes with the students, and we'll probably ask you and hope you come back to one of our meetings so we can hear about how it's going with them and what sort of projects they're getting involved in. Again, for the sake of time, I know we're kind of rapid fire switching between all of our different engagement, stewardship subtopics here today, but for our last subtopic, we're going to move on to recreation. So Tim is going to talk about the Schuylkill Sojourn, and I think show a video or just talk about it. So I'll turn it over to you, Tim.
So before I do that, I just personally thank both Maria and Paul for your presentations. They were awesome. I know at the beginning of this year, March and April, we sort of backed off on, like everybody else, on any in-person things, and that included a lot of our cleanups. But as we move through the year, I think we all realize that we'll be able to maybe potentially engage in some of those more. So we have plans and high hopes for a lot of in-person organized cleanups in 2021. So I'm looking forward to partnering with you again, Maria and Paul. Wow, I just had no idea. That was pretty incredible. Very interested in learning more about SRI in the future. So thank you both for that. So yeah, the Schuylkill River Greenways has been hosting the Schuylkill River Sojourn since 1999. I think we're on our 23rd edition of that, something like that. And it is a week-long kayaking and canoeing event that takes place every year. It's the first full week in June. So it's 7 days, and we start up in Schuylkill Haven on a Saturday morning, and we paddle all the way down typically to Boathouse Row in Philadelphia the following Friday. We have educational programming twice a day, both at lunch and then in the evening after dinner. It's fully catered, 3 meals a day. We have 2 outfitters that come alongside of us and help with that. It's a really fantastic event. It's a great week to celebrate the river, to bring attention to the river and the watershed. It's sort of this great week where all eyes sort of in the southeastern Pennsylvania sort of probably at some point or other hear or see a picture or a video either on social media or even on local TV about the Schuylkill River. So it's a really great opportunity for all of our partners to be engaged, and it's a pretty massive undertaking for our organization. This last year, of course, we weren't able to host it in its normal format, so we had to make some changes. We did pull off 3 days of in-person paddling for smaller groups. I think there was 20 people each day, and we just paddled the same section of the river. But really, the Sojourn this year was virtual, like a lot of other programming, and we created some unique and custom videos. And one of them is this video that's just sort of a general sort of inspirational promotional piece for the river and for getting people out on the river and paddling on the river. So Erica just asked if I would share it. It's on YouTube. It's called Schuylkill Soaring. It's about 6 minutes long. So I am going to try to share my screen and allow everybody a chance to view it here.
And Tim, just make sure you have the sound shared as well.
How do I do that?
It'll be at the top, little green bar. There should be a drop down that says share computer sound.
Uh-oh.
Well, we'll see if it works.
Yeah, let me play it. Let me know if you can hear it.
I don't think we can hear it.
Southeast Pennsylvania.
Oh, yes, we can.
There flows a hidden river. This river sustains its communities. Once a backbone of transportation and commerce, today, 2 million drink its water. This river is lush. This river is wild. This river is peaceful. Behind layers of growth that conceal much of it lies a wonderland for exploration by paddle. This is the Schuylkill.
I grew up paddling the river. Some of my favorite memories are from on the water. Since I was little, I've kayaked with my family and more than 100 other paddlers each June on a trip called the Schuylkill River Sojourn.
I've been paddling with Miles and my family for 19 years. We started when he was about 2 years old, and we bought our canoe, the same canoe that we have now. And having that opportunity, having that boat has turned out to be this thread that has woven through the rest of our lives until this point and going forward, that connects all these important moments for us.
The river's headwaters twist and turn through Schuylkill County. Its flow threads a landscape of Appalachian ridges. Remnants of a canal lock now form waves in Berks County. Downstream, islands create a corridor of green. Paddlers call it the Tunnel of Love. Lively communities may be nearby, but you feel the river's solitude through Montgomery and Chester counties. A restored section of the Oaks Reach of the Schuylkill Canal parallels the river. It's easy to forget how close Philadelphia is. But after descending the ledges of a fall line, you sense the city draw near.
experience that is shared grows in its value. And sharing this with my son is made it priceless.
So there you have it. There's a little bit of a look at the Schuylkill. You know, it's.
I'm Brown Gwen, and I am the 2020 fellow.
Oh, sorry, I need to
Schuylkill
stop
Watershed
my video. Hold on.
Alliance for Watershed Education Center. Today, I'm going to be sharing an awesome.
You can hear a little bit more about the
experiment
Schuylkill
that
River Greenways if you want. So yeah, that's you know, people get out onto the Schuylkill and they just can't believe that there's a setting like that in such a populated area of southeastern PA. I have a friend that was a guide, fishing guide in Alaska, and he came back here and said, I was looking for wilderness on the East Coast, and I found it on the upper sections of the Schuylkill. And so, you know, it's one of the great things about the Sojourn is introducing people to the resource and getting them out there. And so many of the things that we do and our partners programming is designed to do that. So we have hopes that we'll be able to host the Sojourn this year in some sense of normalcy. We'll see what happens, but keep your eyes out on social media for announcements about that. So thanks, Erica, for a chance to share that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tim. I actually hadn't seen that yet. So hopefully I can share that with DeSan on social media. And like you said, you know, the Schuylkill has really gone on this like amazing journey the past 20 years even, where it went from being called Schuylkill Punch and this like undrinkable sort of resource. And now we really want to show people that not only is it safe to drink, but also there are ways you can actually interact with the river. So we're really trying to keep changing that perspective because it is such an amazing resource. So thank you, Tim. And I just want to thank everybody again for joining us today. I know we talked about a lot, and as this sort of meeting and work group kicks off, we're hoping to pull a lot of what we were talking about today and have more focused meetings in the future about different subtopics. So I'll just open it up for the last 10 minutes if there's anything else, any project updates, any news, grants, resources, links that people want to share, any questions for our speakers. I'll just let people for the last 5 or 10 minutes say what they need to say, but if not, we can end a few minutes early.
Hi, everybody. I'll just take the mic for a few minutes then, just to update that we're in our first cycle of the R3 grant that some of the people on the call may have mentioned or referred to me mentioning before. That is our grant for education and outreach opportunities related to fishing and boating. That first cycle is happening now, and we're going to have a new cycle for our R3 grants as well. That'll be the 21-22. This kind of follows a school year cycle. So be on the lookout that once we get the details together, we'll be advertising that probably this spring. The last cycle, we kind of announced it in the summer and had a very short timetable to process those. And it was a new grant for us. We haven't had a outreach and education grant in some years. So we're starting from scratch, but now that we have a new cycle going, we're going to start the whole process sooner and get the next cycle up and going. So it'll be for projects that are fishing activity specific, boating, the canoe and kayak paddle sports programs. There's an emphasis on inclusion with it. So any of the grant partners or the grant recipients who are showing that they're working with underrepresented, represented audiences, they'll be have a better chance at getting those grants. I brought on Annalie. I've been working on, by myself for several years through the agency and the outreach department. Having Annalie on as our education specialist will be great. She brings to us the ability to start producing and translating our educational materials from English into Spanish. So that gives us a lot of expansion of our audience that we'll be able to reach. And final wrap up for me is that we are going to be wrapping up our boat access grants. We have another cycle that either just finished or it's going to be finishing soon. But I believe there will be another year of our boat access grants that'll be coming out. I haven't heard any reason why we'd stop with that. So continuing to work with partners. That grant program is where we work with townships, community groups that are looking to have an access in their area. We provide the funding, and then the entity, the township, can keep up with the public access after we get them the initial funds, so that we can have more accesses out there, and it's not just on the state, on the Fish and Boat Commission to keep those up and running once they're established. And that's it for me. I'll shut up now.
Thanks, Andy.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy, for the update. Yeah. Another reason why we like to get together is just like so people can update each other on what's going on, for more opportunities for sharing. But I guess we can end a few minutes early here. I don't want to take up too much more of your morning today, but thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for the past 2 hours. If you want to sign up for the emails, just to make sure, I put the link in the chat there. And there's also a doodle poll in case you are interested in attending the 2021 meetings. I'm just trying to get a feel for what dates might work for people so we can make sure we're not, overlapping with anything else. So I will be sending out all the resources and slides from today in an email. And I really look forward to this new work group and hopefully seeing you in 2021. So happy holidays, everyone, and thank you so much again.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Good to see you all.
Happy holidays.
You
Bye.
too. Happy holidays.